Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today I thought we'd make a fun little St. Patrick's Day card. So we're going to use the Penny Black stamp set here with this cute little girl sitting in the four-leaf clovers, and this is called A Good Friend. And you can see there you get a nice little idea of how to color her in. So I went ahead and I cut two pieces of Bristol Smooth Strathmore paper in the 100-pound cardstock. And I'm going to go ahead and place these in my MISTI. And I cut two pieces at about 4 by 4 inches. And I'm going to stamp her using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink pad. And I did put it in the MISTI because I am going to be stamping a few more of these later on, and it just makes it easier to do mass producing of these. So I've got the two stamped, and I'm using my Tim Holtz Distress Markers. This one is the Seedless Preserves, and these are water-based markers, and they do have a brush tip and a detailer tip. And then I'm going to be using the Tim Holtz Detailer Tip Water Brush as well to blend these colors together. So I started off just laying down a little bit of that Seedless Preserves, and then I noticed as I started to blend these that my water brush was very wet. I had squeezed out a little water off camera, and it was a little wetter than I wanted it to be. So if this happens to you, just take a clean paper towel and just blot it off. And then here I'm just going to go on to the next section just to let that dry a little bit, and then I'll come back to it. So again, you can see that I'm just pulling in that darker color off, from underneath the brim of the hat over towards the center here. I'm going to keep that lightest part in the center. And I'm continuing to blot that water brush off, just so that it doesn't pick up too much color. Now, I did decide to heat set this because, again, it was getting very wet. So this is another way to kind of dry things off so you can start again. So I wanted more color, more contrast of color on the hat. So I'm coming back in with that color. And now I'm going to pull those two together again here. And you can see I get a nice shading there with a little bit of highlight in the center of the hat there. I'm going to do the same thing here as well. Now this little girl is very detailed, so I did reference the little index on the packaging to see where all these little pieces ended, where her jacket ended and where the flowers were. It was a little hard to tell. So I just want to mention that I did heat set in between each set of colors that I used here, just to make sure nothing bled together. So I'm using the Tumbled Glass and the Mermaid Lagoon. I'm going to start off with that lighter color. And then I'm going to use the, and I did want to point out that on these markers, if you see that little black area, the cap is not on all the way. You really need to hear like that clicking sound in order to make sure the cap is on. I didn't realize that, and I hadn't closed a couple of my markers all the way. And you do want to be careful because they can dry out. So just look for that. If you see that little black mark there, you know it's not closed completely. So now I'm going to continue to, add some shadowing and blend these out. And these kind of images with all this detail, I think are fun, just to stamp a whole bunch of them and then sit and color them in. I used to, when the kids were little, clip them on a clipboard and take what I needed with me to their games or, events, and I could sit and color. Sometimes just even sitting in bed with a clipboard and coloring is kind of relaxing. So you do want to allow a little bit of time to color these in. It is a little bit time consuming, but just do some simple coloring if you don't have time. Just simply color it in and it'll just be just as cute. So I just recently purchased the Distress Markers. I know they've been on the market for a little while. I would say the tip on it, the brush tip is a little bit harder than like a Tombow marker, which is a little bit softer of a brush tip. But as far as coloring with it, you get nice detail and it's very easy to blend, just as easy as the others. So, and I do love the colors. I love the fact that you can match up the colors with all the other Tim Holtz products. So you can match it up with your inks. We are going to be using later in the video some Distress Oxides to do our sky and the grassy area. So I was able to kind of match my colors up. So that's a nice feature. There's no guesswork. So I blended out her little socks there, and now I'm going to do the little 4-leaf clovers with peeled paint, twisted citron, and mustard seed. So I'm going to start with that lightest color, which is the twisted citron, and then I'm going to add a little bit of the darker one, the peeled paint. Now I'm using the water brush here, and I'm going to blend those two together. And then I added a little touch of the yellow sort of towards the tips and a couple little areas on these leaves just to give them a little bit more interest. And I'm going back with the darker shade and blending that out. And I just colored one in on camera just so you could see what I did here. And then I finished coloring in the rest. Now I'm going to use Wild Honey and Vintage Photo. And now I'm going back up to that hat because it is nice and dry now, so I don't have to worry about the colors bleeding in together here. And I'm going to add a little bit of that Vintage Photo on the edges, and then I'm going to blend those two colors together. And it was a nice combination. That Vintage Photo added a little bit of a shadowy, like aged it just a little bit, added a little bit of an antique-y look to the ribbon on the hat. And again, I did dry things in between. I didn't show that on camera. Now I'm going to take the mustard seed and the wild honey, and I'm going to do her hair quickly. Just starting with that lighter color, and there isn't a lot to do here, just a few little areas, strands of hair, and a little bit of that darker color, and I'm just going to pull that down. Just the darker color just kind of up under the brim of the hat there. Now I'm going to take Worn Lipstick and Tattered Rose, and this is for her skin. So I'm just going to kind of start where I think it would be the darkest and pull that color in. And for on her little legs there, I'm just going to start up where the socks are and kind of pull that color up towards the top of her knees so that the knees kind of stay the lightest. Now for the pink, the Worn Lipstick, I'm putting it on my mixed media mat, and then I'm just picking it up with the water brush. And that's just so I would get a really soft effect. So I'm putting a little bit on each of her knees, a little on her cheeks, and I thought a little bit on her nose. It's because she's sitting outside. I just thought it would be cute to add a little color to her nose there. So now I'm taking that lighter shade, and I'm going to do that for her skin tone. And then I'm just going to blend that down, and I want it to be the darkest up there underneath the hat and kind of down at the lower part of her chin as well. And I think you can see that there. Get a little bit of color there. So now with the black soot and the hickory smoke, I'm going to start with the hickory smoke because it is kind of a light gray. And then I'm coming in with the black soot, and I'm just going to try to pull that in. I'm going to use those two colors for her shoes here. I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. Now I'm going to take the mustard seed and do that little buckle on the shoe. But we will be coming over that again later with some glitter sparkle. And now I'm going to do the little socks and the buttons on her jacket. And again, just putting it on the edges of the socks and then pulling that color in. And adding a little bit of the vintage photo as well. Again, kind of mimicking what we did up on the hat there. And then I did use the lighter color just to kind of blend those two together. And then I came in with the water brush and did a little bit more blending. Now that one's all set. So I wanted to get another couple of clusters of 4-leaf clovers for our little grassy area. So the second one that we cut, I'm just going to cut out a little grouping of the 4-leaf clovers, just as many of them as I can get. So I just kind of just went around and I cut right up to that black line. And so I did that one, and then I went ahead and cut that second one. Just again, trying to grab as many of those 4-leaf clovers as I could. So now I'm going to color these the exact same way I did the other 4-leaf clovers, the exact same colors. Now, for this little girl, I want to leave a little white border all the way around the edge. And that's primarily because it'd be kind of difficult to cut all the detail on this, especially around her hair. So I decided it would be cute to leave this little white border. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that all the way around. And when you cut something like this, you want to move the paper and not your scissors. So just move the paper around, kind of keep your scissors in one place, and it makes it go very quickly. Now you can see how cute that looks with that little border. But I decided for these two little images here, I wanted them to mimic that white border. So I'm going to show you a little trick, which is just to glue them down. And I'm using the Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive. Just glue those down to a piece of that white cardstock that was left over from what we cut out before. And then I'm going to let that sit and dry really well. And then I'm going to cut around that, leaving that little white border all around these images. So this is a good way to kind of, I don't know, just mimic that, even though that's not what we had. And we couldn't get that because these 4-leaf clovers went right up to the edge of her little outfit, so we couldn't get that white border any other way. So now I'm going to take the Penny Black Creative Dies, and this is this beautiful little border, and it's called the Wavy Stitched Edges Dies. And I'm just going to tape that down with some purple tape and run it through my die cutting machine. And again, I'm using the Bristol Smooth paper. And this will be, I die cut it out of a panel that was 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I cut a second panel the same exact size, which is an A2 size. And now I want to do my sky background here. So I'm going to take the Tumbled Glass Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to do this entire panel. And then I'm going to take the Mermaid Lagoon, and just figuring out about where that grassy border begins, I'm going to put a little of that up about, 3/4 of the way. And then I'm going to use the chipped Sapphire and put that at the lowest part, kind of right above the grass there. Then I'm going back to the Mermaid Lagoon, and I'm not re-inking this blender. I'm just going to use that to blend it out. And then I'm going to take the Tumbled Glass applicator and blend the top part of it without re-inking this time. So with the peeled paint and the twisted citron, I'm going to do the grass. I'm applying the twisted citron all over the base of this. And with the peeled paint, I'm going to do up towards the top of this little wavy border and a little bit on the sides. And without re-inking the twisted citron applicator, I'm going to just blend those two together. This is the Distress Sprayer, and it just has water in it, and I'm going to spritz this grassy panel and blot it up, and you'll see that we get some really pretty little spatters here. But I thought it needed more, so I'm going to use the peeled paint, and I'm applying it directly to my mixed media mat, spritzing it with some water, and then I'm going to take a paintbrush. I'm just going to spatter this panel just to give it a little bit more interest. So I went ahead and spattered that entire panel. And you can see how that adds a lot. I did want to heat set this so that nothing got smudged. And that to me made it a lot more interesting. So I'm going to do the same thing here with the sky background. I'm going to spritz it with the water, and then I'm going to blot that up with a paper towel. And that'll again give a little bit more interest to the sky there. Now I heat set that because I do want to do some stamping on this panel, and I want to make sure it's nice and dry before I do any stamping on it. I'm going to be stamping this saying, "A good friend is like a four-leaf clover, hard to find and lucky to have." And we're going to stamp that up here towards the upper right-hand side of this card. So I'm going to remove that little grassy border for now. And then again, I'm going back to my VersaFine Onyx Black ink pad, and we're going to ink that up. And again, a good idea to put it in the MISTI just in case you don't get a nice clear stamping. You can go ahead and stamp it again. So we've got that stamped. And now what I want to do is attach that grassy border, and I'm using my Tombow power tape. This is a glue tape. And I'm going to go ahead and position that right down along that bottom edge. And now I have a standard A2 size card, which measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So that panel will fit exactly on there. And we're just going to attach those two together. Now with the little girl, I did want to pop it up just to give it a little bit more dimension. So I'm using my Scotch foam tape here, and I'm just going to cut it into some smaller pieces and just position that all around the back there. And we'll position her down. And I just think she is adorable. And now I want to do those two little four-leaf clover clusters that we cut out. And I'm going to pop those up as well. Just trying to figure out here about where I want them to be. So that looks very cute. Now I'm going to take the Spectrum Noir sparkle pen, and I'm going to do the little ribbon on her hat. Now remember that the sparkle pen is water-based, and the inks that we colored with are as well. So you want to make sure you clean off the pen in between colors, and you want to be careful. You've done all that blending, so you don't want to undo what you've done. So just kind of dab it on gently and make sure you don't move the ink around too much. And now I decided to use the spun gold pen as well to do those little buckles on her shoes. And we'll give it a nice gold sparkle there. And I decided to do the little buttons on her jacket as well. Now you can see all the sparkle we have there and how cute she is. This would make a great little St. Patrick's Day card for a friend, and you could change out the saying or the sentiment if you wanted to. I just think she's so cute. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe, and don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. Thank you so much, and have a great day. Bye-bye.